The pride of Stanstead, Quebec and Derby Line, Vermont, the Haskell Free Library and Opera House was constructed deliberately astride the boundary line separating Canada from the United States. The Haskell's two street facades are splendid examples of late Victorian architecture and combine elements of various building styles. They contrast with the rear of the building, which is strongly Georgian or neoclassical in style.
My name is Nancy and I'm the librarian here. It was purposefully built on the border by Mrs. Martha Stewart Haskell and her son Horace Stewart Haskell. The Haskells were a very wealthy family. Mrs. Haskell was at the time a wealthy widow, and she and her son worked on the building as a gift to the community in memory of her husband, who died at quite a young age. His name was Carlos Freeman Haskell. He was an American, and Mrs. Haskell considered herself a Canadian. And that was very common, and to a certain extent still is in this community. Like a lot of old buildings, after 100 years we've collected a few odds and ends from other people. We have a moose that presides over our circulation desk. The trophy was shot by a man, believe it or not, named Mr. Hunt.
The family's aim was to provide the border communities with a center for learning and cultural enrichment.
One of the first things that visitors to the library will notice that there is a black line that is on the floor, and it really is the border between the United States and Canada.
The atmosphere in the library is luxurious yet restive. There are fireplaces, sofas for reading, and artwork on the walls. The Haskell is also notable for the quality of its building materials. Local Stanstead gray granite on the exterior, and rare native woods, stained glass, mosaics, and tin ceilings on the interior. The Haskell has been featured on network news around the world and in publications such as Life magazine, Canadian Geographic, The New York Times, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and countless others. The Opera House, located on the second floor of the building, also had a practical purpose. According to the original charter dated 1908, it was to be forever managed and used for the support and maintenance of the library located downstairs. Since 1997, a full schedule of shows have been held in the Opera House each season, from the spring through the fall. For over 10 years now, Queen of the Northeast Kingdom Productions has been the international theater company in residence at the Haskell.
Probably the most beautiful part of the original scenery that was created by Erwin Lamass is the roll-down front curtain. Painted on it is a scene of St. Mark's Square in Venice, the Grand Canal, and it's still it's been maintained in very good condition, and it still uses the original operating pulley system to raise it and lower it. It's beautifully balanced, easy to do.
The acoustics in the Opera House are excellent and have delighted audiences and performers alike since opening night on June 7, 1904. On that occasion, the Columbian minstrels performed an old-fashioned blackface routine. The second half of the evening was devoted to a musical comedy, The Isle of Rock, featuring Boston star Eugene Cowles.
The seats are the seats that were installed for the opening in 1904. The most remarkable thing about the Opera House is that it's in its original condition. So a theater of this age, normally what would happen was that they would have generic sets. The groups would travel from town to town, they would bring their props and their costumes and everything they needed, but the theater was expected to provide the scenery.
Yeah, okay.
You don't.
In your opinion, it's a matter of taste.
It's not. I just wish you'd quit fooling yourself. The man is a star.
The Haskell was long said to be a scale replica of the Boston Opera House. This, however, has proven to be quite untrue. The building is in fact unique. Nowhere else in the world can one sit in an opera house that is literally split in two by an international border, where most of the audience sits in the U.S. to watch a show on stage in Canada.
On the front of the balcony, you'll see these lovely little cherubs, putti, I believe they're called, and this all enhances the sound. You have quite literally the original paint on the ceiling. We have the original chandelier. When you go into the hallway where we now have our elevator and the restrooms, you'll notice that one of the walls is completely covered in graffiti, which is very shocking to some of our visitors until I explain that this is a tradition from the Victorian theatre world where performers are allowed to sign the walls, and this was part of our original dressing room. There's graffiti that goes back to the 20s and 30s, and it tells quite an interesting little story of the theatre's history.
Generations of performers have left their signatures on the dressing room walls, and all these have been carefully preserved to this day. Today, the Haskell Free Library and Opera House is both an important local institution and a tourist attraction. The Haskell has been classified a historic site by the governments of Canada, the United States, and the province of Quebec. It is a cultural gem recognized far and wide as something unique, something to be treasured. The trustees and staff of the Haskell are doing everything in their power to make sure that this wonderful old institution continues to serve the public well into the distant future.